Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to day 2 of the Innovation Theater schedule. I'm still Alex Swan, and I'm here, thrilled to be here, working with the SCTE to bring you some of the points of information transfer that will occur at this show. I hope you are having a wonderful show. We're delighted now to kick off this afternoon with ACA Connect's discussion on the opportunities and challenges that face rural broadband system operators. And to kick it off, please give a warm welcome to ACA Connect's President and CEO, Matt Polka.
Hi, everybody. Gentlemen. Well, it's great to be here this afternoon at the Innovation Theater. Wonderful to spend some time with you today. I have to apologize at the start, though, that we are here at SCTE, and this is a technical show, and you have truly the least technical person possible here as your moderator today. We were just joking about that behind the scenes, and yeah, technology's not my forte, but fortunately we have 4 great panelists who can help you understand what it's like to be an ISP in Tier 2 and Tier 3 markets. So we're going to hear from them over the next half hour. And if possible, we'll try to get your questions as well. This might be a little bit different from what you might be expecting. And I was kidding a little bit about the technical nature, but in the discussion with these guys leading up to this panel, they had some very interesting thoughts, maybe less on the technical side of being a Tier 2 and a Tier 3 ISP, and more so on the customer experience and maybe making more out of the services that we provide. So we have a great panel here today. Starting on my left, we have Josh Barstow, who is EVP of Corporate Strategy and Business Development for OpenVault. Next to Josh, we have Cash Hagan, COO of Evolution Digital. Next to Cash, we have Ken Johnson, who is the Senior Vice President of Technology Services at Cable One, which is now doing business as Sparklight. And we have down there, all the way on the left, Tom Williams, VP of Engineering and Technology at Schurz Communications. So fellas, welcome. It's nice to have you here today.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Josh, tell us a little bit about you and what you do at OpenVault.
Well, at OpenVault, we collect data records and then use that to kind of put together a solution to help our operators, both from a congestion standpoint and then also on the business operations side.
What's also cool about these next 2 guys, to give you a sense of why I was excited to do this, is these 2 guys also come from, they're both now on the partner, the associate, the vendor perspective, but they all have operator experience. So these guys bring a deep level of understanding. So terrific. Cash?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So I've been with Evolution for just over a year, almost to the day, as the COO, and have responsibility for a lot of the traditional operational responsibilities, product teams, support of all of you guys that Evolution has been doing business with for a long time. Prior to that, I spent just over a decade with WOW, 8.5 or so years as WOW's CTO, and for the last couple of years as WOW's COO. So come in with an interesting perspective of a service provider like many of you, and now bringing that to a technology provider at Evolution.
And you'll definitely hear that from these 2 folks, particularly as they talk about the areas that I'm going to ask them about in terms of not only the operator side, but now on the vendor side and how you can work more effectively together. Ken from Sparklight.
I'm Ken Johnson. I'm with Sparklight, Senior Vice President of Technology Services. I think probably everyone knows Sparklight's kind of the uncable company. We're very focused on HSD and commercial services growth, and so we bring that perspective to the panel.
Very good. And Tom.
Great.
Actually, one of our new cable TV pioneers here tonight will be inducted. Good for you.
Yes, thank you. So Schurz Communications is we have 5 systems around the country. We have roughly 250,000 RGUs. We provide voice, video, and data services. We have, of course, fiber optic, DOCSIS. We also do quite a bit of fixed wireless as well. So we're pretty diverse in what we do and how we provide services to our customers.
Very good. Well, you can see we have a lot of experience here and really looking forward to talking to these folks. Now, you might have looked at the description where we talked about whole home, Wi-Fi, 4K security, and the impact they have on the network. as well as best practices for Tier 2 and Tier 3 broadband providers. Very kind of technical, deep stuff. But Tom, let's talk about the customer experience. Broadband from a customer experience, how we can simplify it, how we can make it easier to reduce problems in connecting customers and making broadband more readily available to customers. Tell us what you're doing at Juris Communications.
Yeah, you know, I think when we spoke 2 weeks ago about what we were going to talk about today, I really like the way that our discussion went in focusing in on the customer experience. A lot of times that's not what's happened, right? We keep trying to push speeds and feeds and everything else, but not really taking a step back and looking at what that experience is for the consumer. How are they getting services from us? And do we make it easy for them to work with us? And I would say today, the answer is no. We don't make it very easy for them. They have to call in, they have to wait on hold, they have to get a credit check, they have to wait 3 days to get an install. We have to make it much easier for our customer to work with us. And so that's what we're really focused on, is different things, whether it's adding chat applications so that our customer service people can work with our customer, working in Facebook, working in Twitter. How do people want to work with us? That's where we want to be, and that's some of the changes that we're making at Schurz.
Does this include AI at all?
Absolutely, and there's a big component to that, understanding exactly, in fact, even looking at and understanding where people, when they disconnect. So do they start running more speed tests, right? Because if they have a problem with their connection, there's usually not a problem until they start running a speed test. And they'll run it, and they'll run it, and they'll run it, and then we'll see that they'll disconnect. So if we can look at that and make changes in the way that we communicate to the customer and possibly go out and fix an issue that's there, then we save that customer. And we don't have to go back out and go get them again.
So tell us in specific terms some of the ways that you're trying to simplify the customer experience right now in the homes that your company's connecting with broadband.
Yeah, so we're starting at, if you look at the entire process of whatever product it may be, it always kind of starts at that billing part, right? And historically, it's not been very easy to work with the billing companies. So we're starting there, and we're looking at doing things completely different, going to credit card only types of billing, so that we can, that's the way people buy today, right? They go on to Netflix, they put their credit card in, and 20 seconds later their video starts, or whatever service they're buying is delivered within 24 hours if you go through Amazon. That's where we want to be. We want to make it very, very simple. And if you need to chat with one of our people, just hit a chat button and you talk to our people. They can take your credit card as well and input it into the system. But it's really starting at that billing system and then working your way down to the consumer to make sure that the entire process of how they obtain whatever product it may be is easy for them to get.
How long have you had chat communications with your customers?
We're actually rolling it out across the company right now. So we have it in one system, and we'll be rolling it to the other 4 in the next.
So you have it in one system
60
already.
days, yes.
Did you see any interesting responses once you instituted that? Versus...
Well, what we're seeing is there's a lower call volume. So, which helps us, right? Because that means less staff that we need in call centers. But that's what we're seeing. And one customer service rep can help 4 or 5 people at one time, because they can have multiple chat sessions up and they're helping multiple customers, which means there's greater satisfaction with the customer because they're being serviced quicker.
Right. Great stuff. I told you this wasn't necessarily going to be all technical, and you're getting some great thoughts already just with our first panelist. So Ken, let me turn to you, okay? You walk around the floor, everything's wireless, it's wired devices, it's how we can get more Wi-Fi in the home. We just heard from David Pogue, who's talking about for our keynote lunch and speaker, talking about the Internet of Cities and robotics and all of these things that are coming into our home. But in our industry, we've had this thing called the demarcation line, the demarcation point, where we'll bring that wire to the house and we're done, that's it. It's all you from there on. Well, that's not the case anymore, because what we see in our industry is ISPs in our markets embracing the home. So tell us what that means, as well as what you're doing at Sparklight.
Certainly. So I think one of the big things, we've talked for years about the need to own the home to capture and keep the customer. And there's an expectation gap. And we talk about HSD, and the customer talks about how that device they have in their hand connects to the network. And we see the demarcation point historically as being on the side of the home. We want to plug into the back of the cable modem, run a speed test, and if that's good, we're good. You have an issue, you need to work with someone else, tech geeks or someone to fix for you. Increasingly, the end consumer sees Wi-Fi, that Wi-Fi connection is a service they buy from us. That our HSD product goes all the way to their end device. And as a result of that, we have to change the way we're looking at our service to the consumer. So we're doing things like exposing our internal diagnostic tools to the end user so that they can see what we see when we're troubleshooting an issue with them. We need to give them visibility to discrete utilization on a per device basis. So they recognize that with Sparklight Cable One, we have data caps. And so they recognize that they have a data cap that they have to stay under, that they're trying to manage under, but it's difficult for them to understand how individual devices within their home impact that. So they really look at our service now as a service that goes all the way to that endpoint device and doesn't stop at the cable modem. When they call and they complain about connectivity, they're complaining about my smartphone doesn't work, not my tethered device doesn't work. And so that expectation gap has to be closed for us to be successful long term.
I've heard some of our members talk about it as we own the home and we own the wireless in the home, whether it's our device or not, correct?
That's right.
And that kind of alludes to what you were talking about, which is sort of that relationship that you develop with the customer where they realize that we have lots of devices that aren't Sparklights that we still have to manage by way of how much broadband we use. How's that education process going in teaching your customers how much bandwidth they're using and how they can be more efficient with their use of wireless technology?
So I think we're trying to expose consumption, we're trying to expose diagnostic tools, those kinds of things to the consumer, but the consumer doesn't want to manage the network. So their big fear today, when you say, what's your issue? They don't go, I don't get the speed I ask for. They say, I don't get a reliable connection, or I don't get, I don't have, my wireless devices don't stay connected, those kinds of things. And one of their big concerns is, I don't want to have to manage the network in the home. I don't understand it. We think even, I talk all the time, my grandson, and I view him as being very technical. He's a good technical consumer. That doesn't make him technically literate. When it comes time to say, actually, I need to connect this device and there's a problem, he's not much better at it than I am, but he's very savvy at consuming. He's not as savvy at the technical underpinnings, what happens in the back end. And I think we'll hear a lot more from, my guess is from Tom, about how we're actually tracking consumer data. But we look at it as the consumer, the home network's getting more complex. Internet of Things, there's smart appliances, all that kind of stuff coming into the home. That's making it more confusing for the end device consumer or for the end customer, and they just want us as their trusted service provider to take that burden on for them.
Right.
And so it's partly about educating the consumer about what they do, and it's partly about us recognizing that consumer expectation is, I don't want to know, I just want it to work.
Very good, very good. Okay, Cash, let's keep in mind, right, we're all in business here, and businesses are designed to make money. So if we have this concept now that we as ISPs, Tier 2, Tier 3, want to own the home, we want to take control of the devices, whether they're ours or not, there's still some aspect about how we can try to monetize those services that we provide. What's your take?
Sure, and what Tom and Ken both said is they want to make the experience for the end user easier. We as suppliers, which is odd, looking out at all these booths of technology companies, as Tom said, we talk about techs and specs and speeds and feeds, and we go in and sell to engineering people and CTOs and what have you, and don't really talk about how do we operationalize whatever that technology is. We don't think about what is the end consumer experience. We, as the suppliers, as the operators oftentimes, are not thinking that way. We're all sitting around conference room tables thinking that it's easy, but the average consumer that's been at work all day that just wants to come home and lean back and enjoy whatever the experience is, it's not easy. We may think it's technically easy, but I just think we got to kind of step into that life. As it relates to incremental services, I think we need to do a better job, both as an operator and as a supplier too, in thinking that way, and then helping the operator space. How do you monetize whatever those services are? If you're going to own the home, you're going to do it because you're nice guys, or you're going to do it because there's revenue opportunity. And going back to my days at WOW, we would talk about this as internet adjacents. What are the kinds of things that you need our broadband service, but in addition to that, what are the adjacent type of services? And adjacent isn't defined as you're going to get into the mobility business. That is truly a separate line of business. At one point, home automation, security, what have you, was seen as a fourth product line. I think where we're at now is the consumer that goes to Best Buy or goes on Amazon and buys a bunch of IoT stuff, comes home and then goes, now what? Mm-hmm. I think these guys, like I thought when I was at WOW, we are in the best position to do that. And again, thinking about it through the lenses of the average consumer, that they may know how to do it, or we can call Ken's grandson and he could hook it all up for us. But I think there's a real opportunity in front of us to own the home and get something from that customer that just wants a hands-off approach. Because in my opinion, the pendulum has swung back the other direction, to Ken's point, where it's getting more complex where we're at now, even in a world where it's all easy. Mm-hmm. It's not that way.
I like what you said when we were chatting before our panel, but also you said it today in so many words. And I think it's actually a pretty good title or headline for this panel, which is speed and ease, not text and specs. And from a customer perspective, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's what you all have been referring to so far. So
well, I think, Matt, to that, there's a number of folks that are, more retail-oriented types of suppliers that we give a lot of kudos and a lot of hats off to, whether it's Apple or Google team or whoever it is. They have better mousetraps? Not necessarily, but their approach is different because they don't have big buildings with call center staff or technicians out in customer homes. So they have to build a product or build a service offering that is easy, is intuitive, that keeps the phone from ringing when something doesn't work. That is a different model and different go-to-market strategy than the traditional operator space, service provider space has been. You have a problem, we'll be there tomorrow to fix it. Well, let's get there before there is no problem.
Right.
Let's not let the light turn red before we're reacting to it.
Perfect segue to my discussion here with Josh. Josh, when you and I talked, one of the things we said is we as ISPs, we want to reduce the opportunity for what could be a negative experience. We don't want consumers calling, texting, chatting, emailing, angry, going on social media, et cetera. We don't want them to be angry. But there's a way we can figure out what the consumer needs before they get angry, and that's using data.
Correct.
Tell us about that.
So, as a former vice president at MetroCast, nobody ever called to say they loved your product and great job and just give you a kudos for being a good cable company. That call just doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen, okay.
So at OpenVault, we have visibility into the operator network from basically the head end all the way down into the house. And so when we talk about our goal is to get into the predictability business. So we want to stop the congestion points on your network before they become alarming. We want to stop the customer from calling in because 3 years ago they had a 10 megabit per second data package. 3 years ago they had 5 devices in their house, but just over time, the evolution of the wireless LAN in the house, they now have 25 devices. But what they normally never do is call the operator and say, hey, I need more speed. What they do is they call and they say, my speed isn't working, my service isn't working because they're having trouble connecting. So one of the tools that we have is identifies that in-home network and that in-home device module. And then to your point about monetization, we're trying to take all of that data and aggregate it together and then bring it back to the business side of an operator and go to a sales team and say, okay, this list of 10,000 customers of yours has been vetted by our network group and vetted by the product side, and they are ripe candidates for an upgrade. And they're ripe candidates for an upgrade because they really enjoy your service and they use the heck out of it, and we can show you why. right? And so let's not let them get to the point where they're calling in saying their speed and service isn't up to what they think is the expectation. Let's put them in a position where we proactively reach out to them and get them into a package that more suits their need. And we call that right sizing at OpenVault. You know, we try and right size people into what their current situation is, and then more often than not, we'll take a look at, we'll trend out where we think they're going, and kind of put them where they'll be comfortable for the next 24 months without having to have that negative experience again.
So using data to avoid a negative experience
Correct.
and create a positive experience.
Correct. And so that's where we get to. So we're all about visibility and, like I said, predictability, and we're trying to get to a point where we can come to an operator with a package and say, here's a segment of your customer base that to us looks like, if things currently plot forward as we see them, over this next 6 months, they're going to be in a negative experience, whether it's in the house, whether it's in the plant, whether it's noise, whether they've called customer care 10 times, whether you've rolled 15 trucks out there. So we're taking all of that data together, we're aggregating it into a very simple display, and really finding some benefits to more than just the engineering side of the operation. That's kind of where we started. You know, you're talking about high-speed data services and packets and big iron equipment. But now there's as much, if not more, benefit to the marketing side of the business. You know, the last thing in the world we as a partner wants to see is an operator launch a gig service into a network that's heavily congested. It's going to be a failure on both the branded side, it'll be a bad customer experience, and it just takes you down the wrong path. So as we continue to collect and as we continue to look at business problems, we're coming up with new solutions away, but all of it is to get out in front of our skis and make sure that the operator is in a good, strong position to move forward.
We want to take your questions. We have 10 minutes left, so if you have a question, raise your hand. I think we have a couple of people with microphones, so if you raise your hand, we'll make sure that we bring around a microphone, and I'll come back and look and see if we have any here in a second. But in the meantime, with everything that you've said, whether it's the customer experience, owning the home, figuring out ways to be more efficient and to monetize it, make it more easier using data, what you're all talking about, it seems like to me, is information, education, awareness, and relationship with your customers. So you know them more effectively, and you can meet their needs more effectively. I mean, is that a good summary, Tom?
That's a great way to put it. And you know, just knowing our customer where they're going with their own technology in their homes and helping them get there is invaluable to them. So when you look at, as a consumer, you want to add value. That's what we want to do. We want to add value. We don't want to just be this, you know, pipe that we give you a gigabit of service and then we're done, hands off. And then, you know, we want to provide value to them so that they keep coming back to us, that when it's time that they do have a problem, that they stick with us because of the value that we provide back to them. It's exactly what Ken said, and you know, getting into the home and helping them with all of these IoT devices, all of these crazy things that are going on inside the home, where we've got 4, 5, and 6 different hubs that are in the home, helping them understand that so that it just works, right? That's all they care about, is it works. And if you're able to provide that and help them get there, you'll have a customer for life.
Do we see any questions out here before I go back to the audience? Oh, looks like we have one here.
Yeah, Ken, to your point is that the kind of unspoken demarc point in the home is the modem or the router, but we've come to the point where that we've supported beyond that, and we kind of own the wireless network in the house. So what do you think would be the best way to generate a revenue stream to cover the expense associated with those services and functions that we provide to the customer? A line itemed out, for lack of a better term, a linebacker service fee, or just roll it into the base rates and cover the cost through that? What's the best approach that the customer would perceive to be getting the best value for that, above and beyond support we get, but also generating revenue to cover the expense associated with it?
So I can tell you the way we've looked at it. We used to have a ride-along fee, Wi-Fi, and we looked at, do we want to do a managed Wi-Fi fee? There should be an extra fee. What we found is that the consumer, like we're talking, the consumer says, hey, I want it to be reliable and easy to consume. That's it. You know, the Apple ecosystem. People buy it because it's easy. I don't have to be tech to use it. So the way we've approached it is it's included in the base fee. And if we need to adjust the base fee, adjust the base fee. When an installer goes into the home, we launched what we call Wi-Fi 1 about 3 years ago. If we need to put access points in the home to make sure that there's ubiquitous coverage in the home, we do that. There's not an extra fee for that. That's included in the base fee. If you need 2, you get 2. You need 1, you get 1. You need none, you get none. And so we're trying to provide the consumer with an outstanding experience in a home as part of their base level of service. And we've seen, because of that, a dramatic drop in service activity to the home because they've got a better foundation in the home. And ideally, we win the battle long term because we're the better experience for the consumer. And so putting in the base fee is the way we've approached it.
We've actually done 2 different things. So in one of our systems, we gave it away for free. We call it's a smart Wi-Fi service. But then we also tried it in another system where we actually charge $12.99 a month for it, for the smart Wi-Fi feature. What's interesting in our surveys is the happiness of our customers are exactly the same whether they get it for free or they pay for it. And so we're moving across the board, across the entire company, to charge for it. $12.99 for our smart Wi-Fi product. We'll come in, we'll do a professional install, and we'll walk, every corner of the home. But we are going to charge for it. And what's interesting is we have a backlog of people willing to pay for it. They want this thing that badly, so people are paying for it today.
Very good. All right, one quick follow-up.
Can I get one follow-up on that? What about the person who doesn't pay for that, but then calls and requires the services associated with it? How do you handle it?
I'll talk to my call center director and find out how he handles it.
So I can tell you, Steve, and that's really interesting because there's clearly value in perceived value. If I pay for it, it's valuable just inherently. So that's a really interesting thought or approach. We were at one point in time, we were charging a service fee. If we went out there and it was in your home, we charged you a service fee, the $45 or $75, whatever it was. The challenge we found is that on the back end of that, almost nobody actually paid it. So the customer called in and said, I'm going to disconnect if you don't credit this service fee away. And so we, almost always gave it to them. And so we were doing a lot of work to bill it, and then we were doing additional work to give them credit for it. And so we removed it. That's a tough question.
So let me turn to Cash and Josh with several minutes that we have left. We've been talking a lot about from the ISP to the home and to the customer, but we're here at SCTE Cable-Tec Expo where there is an enormous amount of technology right behind us and all over the floor because new technology and everything that goes into the home in many ways starts here. But to do that, we have to build effective relationships not only between the suppliers, but also the providers. Not just on a technical perspective, but also investing and encouraging more of the business and operational leaders to be involved. How are some strategies and thoughts that you both have on how we can better educate the C-suite, so to speak, on technology development? Josh, why don't you start?
Well, it's actually, it's an interesting question because it's something that at Open Vault we've started to move towards. As we talk to tier 2, tier 3 providers, kind of is what this panel wants to address, we realize that not all companies have the bandwidth to hire teams of people that specifically address broadband and analytics. So where we would like to go, in addition to our modules and what we sell to help the operation, is we want to have a seat at the table at either the boardroom or the budget meeting or in the seat. We want to be the trusted partner that can bring you, 40 years of broadband experience and say, this is what we see across our customer base. This is what we see probably heading in your direction. And our recommendation would be the following A, B, and C. And we can show you a little data to back up why we think that's the right move. So we want to be in that consultative role where an operator doesn't have to go out and try and find a group of really smart IP data guys. We would like to be that person for those operators.
Cash?
I mean, interesting synergy just sitting here. They have the customer, you have the data about the customer, and I have some product that is going into the customer home. But outside of these fancy leather chairs here, we don't talk. In a way of you have information that's valuable to them, but maybe I build something different if I understood what that data showed me. What would I do different? You know, I don't know what the answer is, but without the data and without the direct input, again, set text and specs aside. You know, what are your customers telling you? What would make that experience better? And you know, having been an operator for a long time, and now on this side is the concept of so what? You know, a lot of CEOs, I'm sure there's some here at the show, a lot more CTOs here than there are CEOs. And I had one, a very dynamic one that, Matt, you know, that would ask me that all the time. So what? Why do I care about DOCSIS 3.x, you know, what have you? Why do I care about, you know, speeds and feeds kind of conversations? Answer that question. It's a different answer, you know, because our customers care. It's a better experience for them. But we got to be having you know, different conversations, both as operators at the technical level and the supplier level, but also with, you know, the different kinds of people within the operator community. And that's why I said before, you know, talk to CEOs and CTOs, not let Ken go try to sell the value prop, you know, to the CEO. You know, we need to do a better job of that. And positioning.
Okay, fellas, we've got 1 minute and 4 seconds, so I'm going to give you 10 seconds. I just want you to leave our SCTE audience with one thing today. Tom, clock is ticking.
Wow. We didn't prep for this one.
I know. That's the prerogative of the moderator.
Don't drink too much.
Okay. Ken?
I think if I was to say one thing looking forward, it would be that the way we price services is changing. It's historically been a, you know, here's more speed, here's more dollars. And that dynamic's going to shift. We have to find another way to extract wallet share from the customer other than just pure speed play. Speed war's over.
Cash?
Drink more.
Drink more.
No, I mean, we've all been around a long time, and a lot of familiar faces, a lot of friendly faces. You know, some of my experiences in this industry are we're partners, you know, we're aligned, and if we're talking about real business challenges, help you grow your business, that helps me grow my business, that's the conversation we need to have, and I encourage that, want that, and you know, that gets me going much more so than, you know, speeds and feeds kind of stuff.
Here we go. Josh?
I'd say that the data doesn't lie. It never does, right? It'll tell you where you're going. It'll predict most of your future for you if you pay attention to it, and that's all we do at Open Vault. You know, we don't do anything else. We're kind of data geeks, so feel free to call us.
Well, Tom, I ambushed you, so I'm going to give you the last word.
Oh, God.
Again.
We didn't prep for that one.
Same answer.
That's right.
Same answer.
Same answer.
You had time to think. Come on now.
I know. You know, I think it's, you know, we're in a great industry, and we're doing some really amazing things. And I think kind of what Cash was saying, you know, communication is key. And so all of us working together continue to drive technology and innovation forward and help our customers get what they want.
Great stuff. How about a round of applause for this great panel? Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the show floor.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, panelists. Great session. We're going to take about an 8-10 minute break and be back with